The night Marcus Cole walked into Rosie's diner on the edge of town, he wasn't looking for trouble. He was just a tired father trying to give his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, the birthday dinner he'd promised her for 3 weeks. He had exactly $42 in his wallet, a crayon-drawn card stuffed in his jacket pocket, and the kind of quiet exhaustion that only single parents know, the kind that lives in your bones and never fully leaves, no matter how much you sleep. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like a man who had been carrying the world on his shoulders for so long that he'd simply forgotten what it felt like to put it down. But what happened inside that diner in the next 10 minutes would change everything. For him, for a stranger, and for everyone watching. If you believe in kindness, in courage, and in the idea that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to see it today. Subscribe to the channel Kindness so you never miss a story that reminds you what humanity looks like at its best. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We'd love to know you're out there. Marcus had been raising Lily alone for 4 years, ever since the accident that took his wife Dana on a rainy Tuesday morning on Interstate 40. He didn't talk about it much. He didn't talk about a lot of things. That was something the Navy had trained into him. Not silence exactly, but economy. Say what needs to be said. Do what needs to be done. Don't waste motion or emotion where it isn't useful. He had served 12 years, deployed 3 times, seen things that still visited him in dreams he never described to anyone. When he came home for the last time, he traded his uniform for a mechanic's shirt and a small apartment near Lily's school, and he built a quiet life out of the pieces the world had left him. Rosie's diner was warm and smelled like butter and coffee and something frying in the back. Lily had chosen it herself because it had a jukebox and checkered floors, and she had announced very seriously that it was the most beautiful restaurant in the whole world. Marcus had let her order the pancakes even though it was dinner time, because it was her birthday, and because the look on her face when the stack arrived with a candle in it was worth every dollar he had. He sat across from her and watched her blow out the flame and thought, for just a moment, that the world was exactly the right size. He noticed the woman when she came in alone, maybe 20 minutes after they arrived. She sat 2 booths away, near the window, and she had the careful stillness of someone trying not to be noticed. Late 30s, dark coat, a cup of tea she barely touched. Marcus didn't stare. He had been trained not to, but he noticed. The way he noticed everything, quietly and without making a show of it. She had the look of someone waiting for something, or someone, and not in a good way. The 2 men came in about 10 minutes later. They weren't loud at first. That was the thing about this kind of trouble. It rarely announced itself. They sat near the door, ordered nothing, and Marcus felt the temperature in the room change the way it used to change on patrol when something was wrong but nothing had happened yet. He'd learned to trust that feeling with his life, and he trusted it now. Lily was telling him about her friend Emma's hamster, when Marcus saw one of the men stand up and walk deliberately toward the woman by the window. He said something low, something the rest of the room couldn't hear, and the woman's face went the particular white of someone who is genuinely afraid. She shook her head, once, and the man leaned closer and put his hand flat on her table, and the second man rose and moved to block the aisle behind her. In 5 seconds, she was trapped. The other customers looked away. The teenager behind the counter froze, and the woman, to her credit, sat completely still and looked straight ahead the way people do when they are terrified and trying not to show it, as if being very quiet might make the danger decide to go somewhere else. Marcus was already moving before the thought fully formed in his mind. He told Lily in a calm, low voice to stay in the booth and not move, the same voice he used when there was thunder and she was scared, steady and certain and carrying no room for argument. Then he stood up, and he walked the 8 steps between his daughter and that woman without hurrying, without any visible sign of the thing that had just shifted inside him, the old training surfacing from wherever he'd stored it, the way water surfaces through stone when the pressure is high enough. He stepped between the 2 men and the woman with the simple physical economy of someone who has spent years making his body into a statement. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make threats. He simply stood there and asked, in a tone as quiet as it was absolute, if there was a problem he could help resolve. The first man told him, in colorful language, to walk away. Marcus did not walk away. The second man moved toward him, and what happened in the next 40 seconds was swift and precise and almost clinical, not violent in the reckless sense, but controlled in the way that only comes from years of training and the terrible discipline of someone who knows exactly how much force is enough and refuses to use 1 ounce more. Neither man was seriously hurt. Both of them were on the floor. The diner was completely silent. Marcus straightened his jacket, turned to the woman, and asked if she was all right. She stared at him like she was trying to figure out what he was. Her hands were shaking. She said yes, she thought so, yes. He nodded. He asked the boy behind the counter to call the police. Then he walked back to his daughter, who was watching him with wide, serious eyes over her pancakes. She asked him quietly if those men were bad. He told her yes. Some people make bad choices, but that it was okay now and she was safe. She thought about this for a moment and then asked if she could have more syrup. He said yes. He flagged the server down and ordered more syrup, and his hand was absolutely steady when he passed it across the table. It was the woman who told them. When the police arrived and were taking her statement, she kept pointing back at Marcus, and one of the officers walked over and asked him for his name and some basic information, the routine of it. Someone at the counter had already found his name through the car registration. Small town, easy enough. And a moment later, one of the older officers, a man named Roy who had lived there his whole life, came in from outside with a particular expression on his face and said, to nobody and everybody, that Marcus Cole was not just some guy. That he had served 3 deployments as a Navy SEAL. That he had commendations most people in this room would never be able to read about because the operations were classified. That he had come home and never told anyone, and had just been living quietly and raising his little girl. The diner went the kind of silent that is different from shock. It was the silence of a room full of people recalibrating. Lily looked up from her pancakes at her father, and whatever she saw in his face in that moment, some combination of humility and grief and love, made her reach across the table and put her small hand over his large one without saying a word. The woman whose name was Catherine came over before she left. She stood at the edge of their booth and looked at Marcus for a long time. She said she didn't know how to thank him. He said there was nothing to thank him for. She said there was everything to thank him for. He looked at his daughter and said he was just a dad having birthday pancakes. Catherine smiled, and for the first time all evening it reached her eyes. Outside it had started to rain, and the diner windows blurred with it, and inside someone put a song on the jukebox. And Lily asked her father to dance, right there between the tables, and he did. He held his daughter's hands and turned her in slow circles on the checkered floor while the rain came down. And for a little while, in that warm and ordinary place, everything was exactly what it should be. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that quiet courage exists in the most unexpected people and places, please give this video a like, leave a comment, and share it with everyone you know. It costs nothing and means everything. Subscribe to Kindness for more stories that restore your faith in people. And before you go, drop a comment and tell us, what did this story make you feel? We read every single one. Some heroes don't wear their medals. Some of them just order more syrup and hold their daughter's hand and ask if she's had enough to eat. Look for them. They're everywhere.